have our little prayer up on the screen. Refuge and bodhicitta. So training, just putting imprints in our mind. You know, sometimes we can think singing a prayer, that sounds nice, goes in one ear and out the other. But no, when we understand karma, that everything we think and do and say and hear and taste and touch and smell goes into the mind. This is very encouraging. So it's having positive thoughts. Is it a practice? I mean, we really do believe in the West, you know, it's only in the mind, we say. I can think what I like, we say. So nihilistic, you know. This is an incredible view. Everything you think, already that's practice. Just saying these words is an amazing practice, putting atomic bombs under ignorance and fears, and just the thought, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sent, is totally mind-boggling to put into the mind, you know. So be so happy. I mean, even to have a kind thought on this planet is a miracle, you know. So don't underestimate something as simple as that. Sangye charang soke chognam la jangshu baru dagni kyapsuchi dagi turnien gipe sonam ki drola penche sangye dropa shok sangye charang soke chognam la jangshu baru dagni kyapsuchi dagi turnien gipe sonam ki drola penche sangye dropa shok sangye Charang soke chognam la, jang chu baru dagni kyab suchi, dagi chunyen gi personam ki, drola penchir sange drobha shog. May I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. How amazing. Long term, okay? Don't hold your breath. It's okay. So we've talked an overview as far as the book is concerned. We've looked a bit at the background of karma, the mind, how it works, how we live our daily life in terms of impermanence, which is the main way to practice. Without that, you're not going to handle the death time. Like you're thinking, you know, I said the driving test. The way to be ready for your driving test isn't to wait for the day. Oh, I'll be okay on the day. No, you won't. You start driving now, then everything will take care. Same here. Abide by the law, you know, abide by the laws of karma, understand impermanence, realize the preciousness of this life, don't want to waste it. This is absolutely fundamental. Then death will come, death will be easy. You'll be able to, as Lama Zopa says, be able to enjoy death. Sounds hilarious, I know that, but, you know. We looked a bit at the 8 stages of death. We sort of talked briefly about that from the Vajrayana perspective. And then we related that to the particular function of some of the 12 links at the time of death that kind of, you know, play out simultaneously with the 8 stages. The 12 links is sutra teaching and the 8 stages is tantric. They both happen simultaneously, you know, like we talked. So from the point of view of the 12 links, at the time of death, from the point of view of the 8 stages, by about the 2nd or 3rd stage, you know, the 12 links kick in and the grasping that arises very powerfully, the 9th link, before you stop breathing, is what triggers the 2nd link, which is the karmic seed, the complete karmic seed that you've practiced at some point that will be the cause of your future birth. And this is why the helping at that time is absolutely crucial. This is a central point in the entire book. Because at that time of the death process starting, that is when the karmic seed is triggered that will determine your next life. So that's why a person, your pussycat or your grandma, need them there, you there to be calming them, holding their hand, metaphorically even, giving them courage to relax and know everything's okay. Your little dog, you know, who totally adores you, will feel so comfortable when you're there. Help his mind be peaceful. While you're playing mantras, this is the perfect way for your dog to die, you know. Not send it off to the vet, put it to sleep, as we say. And your grandmother the same. If the mind is virtuous, if the mind's peaceful, this is the point. If your grandma's feeling comfortable, secure, everything's okay, you're holding her emotionally, then there's space for her mind to be virtuous, space for her mind to think of others or to be loving or to rejoice in her own good qualities or to think of the Buddha or to think of God or think of heaven. And then that mind is being peaceful and virtuous. The grasping that kicks in, which is not comfortable, because at the same time the mind is virtuous, that grasping, which is the trigger, will trigger the number 2 link. And then because the mind's virtuous, even though the grasping is there, it's kind of curious, because the mind is thinking about virtuous things at that time. The grasping comes, you stay steady, and it triggers a number 2 link, the seed, one of the billions of karmic seeds in your bank vault. Hopefully one of the ones that will be triggered will be the non-killing karma. Even better practice within the context of a spiritual path. Even better practice in the context of keeping vows of non-killing. That is the type of seed that was triggered in our past life when we started to die, which gave us this rebirth of a good human birth, good human conditions, and miraculously access to a spiritual path. That's what we want for the dog and your grandma and yourself. Bare minimum. That's it. It's very technical. So you set up the conditions to allow that to happen. That's the point. That's the essence of the entire book, you know. So any questions? Which point do you want to go into in more detail? We've covered mostly everything, touched on the main points. There are still more things to do once the mind of your grandma's left, once the mind of your dog is gone and they're now in the bardo. You know, there's still more you do for those next days. We can discuss all that because there's always something you can do. But are there any questions about the points we've made you want to go into more deeply, please? Because it's important to be clear. I say things so quickly and I hear from some questions, you've misunderstood me. It's my fault, not yours, you know, so I want to be clear. Get things right. Are there any questions? Yes, sweetheart. Yes, darling, talk to me. Question. Give me your question.
Good morning, everybody.
Yes.
Tashi Beg. And I'm sorry, I am asking selfish questions, but I am trying to understand what happens to the person. Well, so let's use the person like my Lama. When he passed, everybody in the monasteries all over India were, praying for him. And then we've talked, and that's a grand scale. And you talked about some of.
So the question is,
what if it is you are going to die alone, that you don't have a community because you've been alone, and that's been the practice, and so it's very solo journey.
It's like, okay, good question. So it's like asking me, what will it be like if I have to drive a car all on my own on the freeway with no helper? And so the answer depends upon how well you've practiced driving.
Mindfully and always with prayer.
Forget mindfulness. Screw mindfulness.
Okay.
No, from this, I'm not screw. Forgive me. That's not right. That's one component. But the extent to which you are capable of suddenly going onto the freeway with 6 lanes of traffic and driving at 80 miles or 70 miles an hour is the extent to which you've practiced driving, darling. So equal here. How do you deal with dying alone? To the degree that you've practiced all your life, you have confidence in the path, you've got your practice down, and you feel confident, then you will manage it.
Yeah, okay.
That is the answer.
So I'm not going to miss out on something because I am doing it alone.
That's the answer.
That's the answer. Okay.
So keep practicing. Keep practicing every day.
Yes.
Keep living your life.
Yes.
Keep understanding impermanence.
Yes.
Keep practicing. And this is the point about the understanding, the view of karma, which for me is a very practical thing. We all know if you practice piano well every day, it's like asking me, how will I be on the day of the concert? To the degree that you've practiced your piano and you have confidence is the degree of your success on the day of the concert. It's exactly like that.
Right.
Karma is a practical thing. It's not mystical.
Right.
It's you program your mind and then you're ready for it, baby.
And that's when I was in like the last treatment at Ayurvedic Hospital.
What, sweetheart?
The last time I did the medical treatment in South India.
Darling, just ask me a question.
Oh,
Keep
question.
it very focused for all of our sake. You have another question. I don't think you do. I think you just have to get confidence because you're worrying that you're going to die alone. So then keep practicing.
Well,
keep practicing. Keep practicing.
I'm not worried.
Then that's fine. So you don't have a question then.
Well, I have the same question.
So what's another question?
The same as like when I first started hearing about
I need a question. I'm not being rude to you, I promise. I need you to focus on a question. Give me a question.
Okay.
That's what's best. You cut to the chase. Give me a question for your sake.
Um,
If you haven't one,
what happens to all the people that nobody's praying for?
Well, darling, it's like asking what happens to the people who haven't learned how to drive when they're on the freeway. They'll crash and die. No, sweetheart, I'm being dramatic now. What do you mean by that, please? What do you mean, sweetheart? Look, we're not discussing prayers here. We're not discussing prayers. We're discussing you practicing.
Okay.
We're focusing on that.
Okay.
And then if you do have other friends of yours who are off in Timbuktu or somewhere else who know you, they might say a little word to the medicine Buddha. That'll help you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you have got friends. You have got fellow students of your Lama. You do have them, surely.
I don't.
You mean you have no friends in the Dharma? You said you had a Lama.
I was in
Sweetie, you said you had a Lama.
Yes, he died.
So you mean, excuse me, you had a Lama, you said?
Yes.
That means he has students.
Yes.
And then you're one of those students.
Yes.
Surely you know the other students. They're your community. No.
No.
Why not? How come you
Because
don't know them?
I mostly speak English, a little Tibetan.
Okay, then never mind, but they're still there. They still know you, even if they speak Tibetan.
No, because I'm mostly in northern India.
They don't know you exist. Do they know you exist or not?
Yes, they do.
Well, let them know you're going to die soon, so they'll say prayers for you.
I will.
You to
My
reach out to your
monastery.
community.
Okay, I will do
That's
that.
important, darling.
I do. I will.
Good.
Yes.
Good.
I have all those prayers, and I'll ask you to. They're in Tibetan. Maybe you can help.
What,
me.
sweetheart?
I have some of those rituals, prayers that my Lama wrote down, and then I went to the monastery, and they all prayed for me, chanted with me.
Well,
so
you do have friends there.
well, I actually maybe I could show you because it's
No, I
Tibetan.
don't need to see it, darling.
Well, the rituals I don't
I
understand.
don't need just go one step at a time, please.
Okay.
And where do you live?
I live here now.
Well, honey child, what are these people? Are they called human beings or are they not called human beings?
I feel so grateful.
Are they not Gelugpas or not? Are they the same family as your Lama or not? So for goodness sake, you've got community. How about nourishing it? Instead of all the time thinking, I'm alone, I've got nobody. Stop that.
No, I like my alone.
Excuse me, if you do, then don't complain.
I'm not
You are
complaining.
complaining.
No.
No, you are. So don't panic. There's no reason to panic. Forgive me being shouting and yelling here.
Yeah.
Keep focused. Do your practice. Have confidence in your practicing driving every day, then the driving test will work. Have confidence in it and go one step at a time. Connect with these people. They're the same Gelugpas, the same as your Lama. You've got community. You've got friends. Come to the classes, study and practice every day, and one day you'll die like everybody. Okay, one step at a time, Petal. Are we communicating? Yes.
Yes.
That's enough. Put the microphone, give the microphone to her. Thank you. Any other questions?
Venerable, I have a question.
Okay, then Jayla, give me what's online. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry so much if there's someone else online.
Go.
Venerable, could you again mention how wonderful this book is, How to Face Death Without Fear, and how it is a roadmap?
Okay, she just said it.
People?
Did you hear her say? No, you're speaking English, you just heard her.
Yeah.
I will say it again later. We're working on a reprint of the paperback now, but there is a digital book still available. Absolutely. Yes. So you get that.
Yeah.
First step,
I highly recommend this book. It is, and it's in the notes, and after class, I can sit with you and we can go this, because this is just
anyway,
incredible.
there are course notes, sweetheart, there are course notes in the chat box on the Zoom, or you go and ask that monk at the back and he will send you the course notes, which include many other teachings as well as excerpts from this book, which will give you the name of the book. So then you have all the information you need. And this is coming from the same tradition as your Lama. Do you understand, sweetheart? Good. So it's on the website, our website. Okay, Tiana. Okay, good. The notes are there. Okay, great. So yes, what else, Mary? Is that it?
That was it. Shayla has a question. Thank you.
Okay,
Shayla.
darling, talk to me.
The question is online from Christine. She says, can we discuss the out-of-body experience as it relates to the body almost dying?
I don't understand the question, Christine. Please say it out loud yourself in your own words. Where's Christine? I can't see her. There she is. So say it in your own words, please, Christine. I don't understand that question, sweetheart.
2 years ago, I was so sick that I coded, and they had to bring me back to life. And it was not, they had to bring me back to life. And it was not a scary moment, but I do remember everything that happened while I was in my body, but felt like I was out of my body.
Okay, so what's the question, darling? The
what
question, Christine?
the question for me is, what is that happening that when
What is
you
that
are,
what? What is that
is
what?
what is happening when you are at that moment of death and yet you are outside your body
You weren't dead
observing?
yet, honey child. You're not really close to death yet. That's called your mental consciousness. It's okay. That's called the same as when you go to sleep and you have a dream. That type of experience is what's called your mental consciousness when your sensory consciousness is not working. Okay. When your sensory consciousness is working, when you're wide awake and wound up, the sensory experiences dominate our lives, don't they? The sense of shape and color and sound and ground and very solid. When the senses have ceased, that's either when you dream or you're in a coma or you're getting close to death. That's your mental consciousness. That's what it is. That's your mental consciousness. And so what happened was you weren't ready for death, so you came back. It's your mental consciousness. Do you understand?
Yes, thank you very much, Venerable.
Okay, and the point about the mental consciousness is it's more subtle. So when the senses are dominating, we can't see past our own nose. But we know if we're even in ordinary daily life, if you're a little bit sensitive, you feel a connection with others, you feel empathy. That's your mental consciousness. And when that's really developed, then you begin to get, when you've got concentration at the mental level, you've accessed a subtle level of your capacity for cognition. And that's where you get literally clairvoyance. We have a taste of that when we have empathy. You know, when you're really self-centered and really stuck in your own self and really only vividly caught up in the senses, you can't see past your own nose. You can't feel anybody else. You don't care, only about yourself. And when you have more virtue, you're accessing your mental consciousness, and that's more subtle. And then when you increase that capacity by developing more love and more kindness, and indeed you get concentration, then you literally can see the past and see the future and see the minds of others. That's why people have all these amazing experiences in their dreams. They have clairvoyant experiences. They see things. This is your mental consciousness, and this is what it's capable of. So when you're really a developed yogini, this is completely clear to you. You can see the past, you see the future, you see the minds of others as clear as you see the palm of your hand. So it's our mental consciousness. And so as you're dying, literally going through those 8 stages, your eye consciousness is ceasing, your ear consciousness is ceasing, you're getting closer to your mental consciousness. And that's why, let's say, if a positive karmic seed is triggered about at that point, then your death will be blissful. That's because your mental consciousness is you're literally seeing your future happy rebirth, literally. And equally, if a negative seed is triggered at the time of death, you will be seeing the future nightmare. And that's why people have incredible, powerful visions of horror and nightmare and panic and fear at the time of death. It's to do with your sensory consciousness ceasing and your mental consciousness. And that's why, again, one of the main reasons to be quiet and always be very focused and calm and quiet in the sick room, in the death room, in the room where the sick and dying person is, because as you get getting more sick and more dying and more old, your senses start to go and you become more subtle, and so then you're more susceptible to the smallest noise. So you keep it calm and quiet, and as Lama Zopa says, the only sound should be the sound of the prayers and the sound of the mantra. Are we communicating, Christine?
Yes, we are, Venerable. Thank you.
Good, darling. What else, people? Yes, Nina, sweetheart.
Thank you, Venerable, for
Go
the
ahead.
teachings. I'm not sure if the question is appropriate, so if it's not, then then just don't answer. But you have mentioned the death,
Be closer.
the death process, and the tantric view of the jhanas and so on. And I'm just wondering, because in the sadhanas, when we practice the death process, there's also
Kakoti, be closer.
there is also a dissolution of the seed syllable that happens, so to speak, simultaneously, or
That's
that
right.
we focus in on.
Yes.
And it's just a technicality, but I'm
Okay,
just
good.
wondering
I'll describe.
how to meditate
Okay,
on that.
so the
Thank
typical
you.
one is we've got the Dharmakaya, which is the subtle, all-knowing, all-compassionate, all-purified mind of the Buddha. And that you train going through the 8 stages, and you get to the subtlest level, and you say, this is the Dharmakaya. You're pretending, this is the Dharmakaya, the enlightened mind. Now then, typically, you then would from that Dharmakaya, you as a practitioner in your daily life, not in the sadhana, you would then be able to first manifest in the subtle form, which is the Sambhogakaya form, for the sake of the great holy beings, the Arya Bodhisattvas, and that's the deity's body and the Pure Land. Then you would manifest in the Nirmanakaya, which is the grosser body, the form that we can all see, such as, human form. Okay, that's in daily life. That's what you do as a Buddha, as a practitioner. Now, in the sadhana, it's got to be a bit different. So in the sadhana, you do the Dharmakaya one at the 8th stage, the clear light. And then in the sadhana, when it's more extensive, not in, say, for example, six session Guru Yoga is quite short. So the next thing you do is out of that Dharmakaya, you'd then manifest as a seed syllable, and that for the sadhana is the Sambhogakaya. And then you manifest as the deity, and that for the sadhana is the Nirmanakaya. That's the difference. You hear that or not? And if not, I'll say it again.
I heard, Venerable. I'm wondering about the dissolution. So when we
Go to the 8
when we are
stages.
practicing the death process,
8
and at the
stages,
same
yes.
time, there's also a dissolution of the seed syllable.
Well, that's sometimes it depends on which part of the practice. You would sometimes do that.
Yes.
So go on.
So
dissolution from the seed syllable to what?
Yes, when we practice that, and at the same time the winds are dissolving, the drops are coming, how do we, are we in real death process able to actually visualize or focus on the seed syllable? How does that
I don't
technically work?
Sorry. Maybe we shouldn't discuss this here.
I see.
Let's do
Okay.
it. Yeah, because these are extremely important for people when they do the sadhana. So we have to really be clear about this.
Yes.
So I can't understand what you're saying properly now. Let's do it later.
Okay.
Better.
Thank you.
Thanks. Who else, people? Somebody, any kind of question? Or do you have something else you want to go into more detail on? Where? Who? Okay, sweetheart. But think of something you want to go like more about karma, more about the 8 stages, more about whatever you want, please. Yes.
Thank you so much for your teachings,
Good
Venerable
job.
Robina. Okay. I wanted to ask if you could provide some more clarity about the white light phase of the death process. The white light. Often Christians and lay people that have near-death experiences perceive that as heaven in the white when they're in the white light phase. The white appearance.
I understand. So you mean Christians who've had that and come back to life? I'm not sure you'd get to the subtlest level. I don't think they'd get to the white light. I think if you get to the white light, you can't reverse the process. I'm not sure. I think that's really pretty much too subtle. I'm not sure. I don't know well. But it would just be white light. It wouldn't be any forms. The way they're talking here is, and we go through this every time we sleep, but we don't remember it, So this is where the yogis, because they've accessed the more subtle level of their mind, they can actually do it in their meditation. But if you're going through that and you recognize it, it's just white light. It would be blissful, but there's no image of God or anything. There would be none of that. So it's a bit like the experience. You see, it's interesting. Remember this, the guy I told you who left his body and walked along the hospital corridor. Were you here for that story? You were here for that story. Do you remember it? You don't remember it. This guy in bed, this doctor in years ago, 90s, I saw this on the computer. They didn't call it YouTube then, whoever it was. Film. This doctor had recorded his different patients' experiences of near-death experiences. They weren't pleasant. They were the hell-like ones. And one of them was this fellow who said he had a heart operation, was in the hospital, very anxious when he's going to get it, and his wife was sitting there. And at some point, he was out of bed, he said, and he's talking to his wife. And she didn't answer, and he got annoyed. And he looked at the bed, and he saw his body was there. So he's having this what we call out-of-body experience, which is your mental consciousness. Your mind is not out of your body, but it just feels like that. Because if the mind were out of the body, you would be dead. You understand? But we have this feeling of all these experiences, which is what we do in dreams. We dream all these dramatic stories and dramas. It's the same. So what happened was he then heard a voice in the corridor, and the nurse saying, "Come on, come on." So, "Oh, good, I've got him my operation." They started walking on the corridor. And then they were all nice to him, and then they became mean to him and ripping his flesh and abusing him, and then they left him. And he said it was the darkness and despair, the likes of which he'd never known. So he didn't know what to do. So he thought, I'd better pray. And he hadn't prayed since a little boy. So our Father who art in heaven, and he couldn't go any further. So he tried, the Lord is my shepherd, and he couldn't go any further. He really forgot, you know. Then he just called out, Jesus, help me. And then white light came, very subtle, away from the disappointment. They got bigger and bigger. It was Jesus. It was Jesus, dramatic, powerful, blissful, radiant, loving, healed him, encompassed him, and he wanted to go with Jesus. And Jesus said, no, you go back and serve me. So he did. So that level of experience, it's like a dream. It's just like a dream, you know. It's exactly the same as a dream, the same quality. It's exactly the same. So how subtle that is, I think that by that point, if it were the actual death process, I don't think there'd be shapes and forms. This is what I'm just speculating here. Do you understand my point? So that's more subtle. And the white is simply coming because of the dissolution of the white drops. That's how they describe it. Then the red comes, which is something else. So I'm not sure. They are quite subtle. They're getting closer to death than life, you know. And I don't think these experiences that people have, I don't think they're that subtle. And this isn't my own, I don't know, but this is my comment. Do you understand? Yeah. Yes.
Charlotte, what does it mean, or what?
Charlotte.
Yes, that's my name.
Oh, sorry.
What does it mean if you can't remember your dreams, like ever? You don't
Can't remember what?
can't remember your dreams.
So who cares? I mean, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Who cares? I mean, maybe it's a hassle. Dreams are a hassle. Sometimes all these your old garbage all coming up to the surface, all your old memories and your dramas and your paranoias and your dreams
Okay.
and your fantasies. So I mean, who cares?
Okay.
Do you understand? I mean, dreams can be good if you can experience, if you can if you can interpret them nicely, because it's all your mind, but it's taking all these weird shapes and forms, isn't it? You see people and things, but then it's your own projections, you know. So you can learn about your dream. You can learn from your dreams. I mean, even the way the Tibetans would translate that, they'd say, for example, you know, by dreaming about water, that could be a very good sign of purification, or fire, or breaking things, you know. Or ego, if you have a lot of fear, could be a good sign. So sometimes they can be very useful. Dreams can be very, very useful and tell you things that are going on. Just analyze them, and they can tell you about what's happening in your mind, you know. Do you understand?
Yeah.
But if you don't remember it, I mean, I haven't remembered any dreams for years. Some people don't. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I just feel like I'm missing out on something.
Yeah, just your own mind, darling. It doesn't matter. It'll come eventually. Or maybe you just decide. You just lie down and sleep and you say, I'm going to remember my dreams tonight. And you never know, it might happen. Yeah. Who else? Well, somebody? Good, darling. Go, Chosa.
So this mental
Consciousness, the subtler level of your mind beyond the senses, that isn't sensory.
do we access it by practicing shamatha and vipassana?
You learn to focus your mental conscious. Keep the microphone. That's what you're doing in single pointed concentration, calm abiding, this brilliant technique invented by the Indians 3,000 years ago. You're training your mind, your mental consciousness, to get more subtle and more focused, so that you can use that to do the work internally, to realize emptiness and all the rest, because it's only when the mind is more subtle and crucially unencumbered by the sensory experience. Do you understand? Yeah. So I think dreams, you don't have sensory experiences. That's why it's so weird and wacky, you know. It's your mind making up all these stories, but there's no control. This is the thing. So it's learning to focus your mental consciousness. And even this is a really good point for even just day-to-day life. No, I'll use the same example. You know, I see this cup, let's say, I'll go here, my eyes will go there. You'll see my eyes go here. And then I will say, wow, it's a very pretty cup. So just naturally, we will think that my eyes are seeing a pretty cup. Well, this is where it's really helpful and very sobering. When we recognize we have sensory consciousness, which is I'm spelling it out, okay, which is our mind, which is not physical, that works in conjunction with the eyeball and the nerves and all the right things happening and the lights on and everything else, to have a cognition to have a cognition, because the mind is always cognizing something. And each state of mind, each part of our mind has very specific objects it can cognize. So we give all this power to our sensory consciousness. We really believe we're seeing a pretty cup. We're really believing we're hearing a divine sound. We really believe we see a beautiful, but the fact of the matter is senses are really limited in their capacity for cognition. They're like dumb animals with respect to animals. But as Lama says, we make the body the boss, So what's happening in reality, eye consciousness goes here. And all it can do is cognize two things, shape and color. All sound can do is cognize sound, loud, soft, but it can't articulate it. It's completely inarticulate. It's bare bones cognition. So then you have to ask yourself the question, it's obvious. Well, excuse me, which part of my mind is cognizing a pretty cup? Well, guess what? Quick, and I'm joking, I'm not joking. The minute my eyes go here, and then quicker than Google, mental consciousness is accessed. And as Lama Zopa says, that's where your workshop is. That's where all your memories, all your thoughts, all your opinions, your emotions, the junky stuff, the positive stuff, it's held there in this mass of soup of stuff, But the millisecond you see that, mental consciousness is accessed, and then depending on how strong your viewpoints are and how the taste you've developed over your life, and indeed your karmic imprints, out will come an opinion about that shape and color. And in my case, I'll say, wow, that's a pretty cup. So in other words, it's a viewpoint, it's an opinion, it's a concept, it's an idea, it's a thought. And all Buddha's saying is, and when you learn Buddhist psychology, divides those thoughts into three categories. Those that are invalid, ridiculous, distorted, deluded, attachment, anger, jealousy, pride. They're completely pathetic drama queens that make up drama stories. I hate that cup. It's so disgusting because it belongs to my ex-boyfriend, And it looks like an ugly cup to you. It's all conceptual. Then you have valid concepts, which are, the emotional ones are called love and kindness, but also the bare bones fact that it is a cup. That's a valid concept. It's not a toilet. And then you have the third category, which are the mechanics of the mind, like intention, attention, concentration, discrimination, all of this stuff, which is the stuff of Buddhist psychology, which you can study. It's brilliant. So you've got your mental consciousness, and then you have your sensory. But we make the body the boss. And for as far as we're concerned, the second we wake up in the morning, until the second we go to sleep, the external world, which are the objects of the five senses, bare bones, shape and color and sound, dominate our lives. And then we make up all these opinions about them. I mean, this is very humbling. What's reality here, mate? Do you see my point here, people? Mm-hmm. So even just to say that's just shape and color, and then the rest of it's an opinion, now is it a valid one? Because some of these opinions are valid opinions. That is a cup is an opinion, but it's valid because we've all agreed between us and our culture that's labeled a cup, that's labeled an iPad. They're valid cognitions. And then it's got to function. It's got to function, as you say it will. You've got to function. Then we all can we talk common sense then. If we could all just speak facts on the planet, the world would be a happy place. But what we do is we dump our projections, our dramas, our delusions on top of what is there. And then this is the tragedy. We never think for 1 second that our mind has made up an opinion that that is a pretty cup or that is a disgusting cup. We believe it is true, and that's the killer. We think pretty cup is intrinsic in the yellow and the shape. What a joke. This is helping us understand emptiness. This is very sobering. Are we communicating? So when the sensory has gone, when you're asleep, no wonder your dreams are wacky. It just shows how weird our mind is and how we've never trained it. You go from pillar to post, jumping over mountains, going down to hell realms, all the drama of our mind manifesting as shapes and colors, as big dramatic stories. Are we communicating here? Anyway, questions? More questions? Talk about something more? I don't know what to talk about. You have to ask me. I'm sorry. Where? A question. Thank you, precious.
You mentioned yesterday something very little, but you mentioned, I think, neural pathways or neurotransmitters.
I beg your what? I never said those words ever once.
I thought you
I
heard
never once said a neural pathway.
neuro something, didn't
I
you?
never said. Or neuroscience, I might have said. Nothing else.
Neuroscience, yes.
Go on, darling.
And then also, I am a stroke survivor.
What, sweetheart?
I am a stroke survivor. So I
Oh,
have
the
to
question is?
learn everything all over again.
Good,
And
good, that's
where
wonderful.
was where is the mental consciousness?
That's your mental consciousness.
That
That is, thoughts and feelings are your mental consciousness, and they need the brain. The brain is the physical indicator. In the Buddhist view, I would say your brain is a physical indicator of what is happening in your mind. The brain is not the mind for the Buddha. But the brain is a physical indicator of what's going on in your mind. So you train your brain to fix all the channels, then your mind can function better. Yeah, your mind is not the brain. That's the Buddhist view, fundamental. Okay, clear? Good, darling. Okay, people, someone else? I have to think what to say otherwise. What else? What do you want to talk about? Come on. Go, sweetheart. Yes.
Yes.
Good, darling. Go.
See, I was under the impression that dreams were important because if we practice lucid dreaming,
If we practice what?
lucid dreaming and dream yoga, that's one of the ways
As a
that we
practitioner,
can.
sure, when you get advanced, yeah.
Um,
Sure, advanced practitioner is great.
but
Learn to,
that's one of the ways that we can control being conscious in the bardo.
what, darling?
If we practice, like if we get to the point where we're conscious, we control and we're present in our
Sure.
dreams.
The point is this, of course, you're absolutely right. There are amazing practices all there in the Vajrayana about, keep that there, about using your dreams. But the point of the fact of the matter is, if we can't control our body and speech, which is the grossest level of our being, forget about even noticing what you're thinking. So therefore, forget about controlling your mind, your dreams, darling. It's one step at a time. The greatest yogis who've got concentration and have got realizations, you know, Lama Yeshe, for example, my teacher, he had what seemed to be a bad heart, so he'd have a nap in the afternoon. But as Lama Zopa said, he never slept. He had total concentration. He was able to go to his subtle mind and do all these amazing, powerful things, and do because their mind is completely in control. That's a completely different. So you can try lucid dreaming, go for it. But if you can't control your body and speech, which are the servants of your gross level of mind, then excuse me, it's one step at a time, you know. If you've got discipline and ethics and a bit of concentration, then yeah, sure. You understand my point?
Yeah.
Good. Yes, dreams can be used, absolutely, because it's just subtle mind. Get your gross mind together first, please. And then get the servants of your mind together first, which is your body and speech. We can't even control those. Everything we feel, we vomit it out our mouth. We eat cake whenever we see it. We've got no discipline whatsoever, you know. You understand my point? So that's why junior school, entry level, grade 1 level is control your body, control your speech. First step, then your mind, then your subtle mind, one step at a time. But we can try these methods. It's okay. Get some practice, you know, no problem.
Venerable, there's 2 questions online.
Yes.
Ajna has a question. His
Good.
question is, so is the white light something to strive for and abide in, or is it just another phase in the process?
It's just a phase in the process, that's all. It's just you don't strive for it. No, no, I hear your point, but no, that white light one is a common experience. And even the way the Lamas say, Lama Zopa says it, if at the time of death, a negative seed is triggered and you haven't even lost the plot yet, you're still able to move your body, then your behavior will indicate that, because your mind is now, you've triggered a negative karmic seed, which is going to ripen as a future suffering rebirth, a very suffering rebirth. So even as you're still living in this body, you're going to start seeing signs of it. So you'll be absolutely full of terror and you'll, you know, scream and yell like you're seeing monsters. So as Lama Zopa says, when you die with a negative karmic seed triggered, you're going towards the dark. They say it's like going towards the darkness. Then when you die blissfully, like my friend who fell off the roof at Vajrapani Institute, dying in his wife's arms, she said he was radiant. He died, was an experience of going towards the light. That's how they talk. It's very kind of poetic. But the technical point of the 8 stages, the white one, is well beyond. Well, the white one is after the breath has stopped, you know. You might even be aware of the signs as you're sleeping of the earth ceasing and so on. But the white one is once you're unconscious, you know. So I don't think striving for the white light, that's very sort of only poetic, not technical, I don't think. You wouldn't strive for that, no. You'd just strive to be virtuous and clear, so death will be a good process, so that a virtuous karmic seed will be triggered, so that you'll have a decent human rebirth, so you can carry on your spiritual path. I think so, I don't know. What else was there?
Thank you, Venerable. And Ajna, if you've got a follow-up question, please let us know. In the meantime, Bade has a question. Bade's question is, may we please hear more about different motivations for preparing for death?
Different motivations. Different motivations. Well, okay, I mean, okay, sorry, sure, okay. So if I'm my philosophical view is materialism, and I don't believe in a future rebirth and don't have a view like that and don't have a view of God or heaven or anything, then obviously a good reason to want to die well would be so that you can make peace with everybody and look back on your life and feel you've left something useful on this planet and be content with your life and die with a happy mind. That's pretty good, I think, already. Would you agree with that? That's pretty good. So it all depends on your viewpoint, you know? So whereas if you have a philosophical view of materialism and you're grasping and clinging and fearful and fighting with your grandma and your grandpa and shouting about the will on the day you die, that's going to be unhappy for everybody, you know? So at least practice some goodness, be a nice person, leave something decent behind, and, you know, kiss your grandma and your grandpa and your children and die. That's not bad. That's if you're a philosophical materialist. Okay, then the next would be maybe you're a Christian. You've got to have it's a view, it's all based on view, you know, really it is. Then you should look forward to going to heaven. That's your main goal. Okay, as to whether heaven exists and reincarnation, that's another discussion. We're talking about viewpoints, you know. People have different viewpoints. You ask an Australian Aboriginal what they're going to think when they die, I have no idea. There are so many viewpoints around the world, aren't there? So the person who's a Christian will be the same. They want to live a decent life. Why? Because you're doing God's will and you want to stay with God. And at the time of death, you want to be with God. And so you look forward to going to heaven. So you'll die with a happy mind as well. Then if you're a Buddhist, you know, this view here, the Tibetan Buddhist, maybe, you know, maybe Zen's and your view a bit different, I don't know, but the way we taught, the Vajrayana, you very much, all this book, as I've been discussing, is completely in the framework of this continuity of consciousness that comes into this life based on your past karma and will go to a future life based on your past karma. So that determines the way you live your life. So your motivation, if you have the big view, the Mahayana view, is I want to keep on going on my spiritual path. I want to get a decent rebirth so I can carry on developing my spiritual path and get all the right conditions. Therefore, I'll know what karma to create so I can continue without break and become a Buddha to benefit sentient being. So it all depends on where you're at. Is the answer, Bade? Is that what you meant? Where's Bade?
Bade
Yes.
is
Is that what you meant, sweetheart?
Thank you, Venerable. Yes.
Good, darling. Okay. So it's up to, but the bottom line is, it seems to me, whether there's reincarnation or whether there's heaven or whether there's nothing, a black hole, it seems to me you can't go wrong by being a nice person. You'll live nice and you'll have a nice death. I mean, you can't go wrong. It'll be harmonious and pleasant. So bare minimum, do that, you know, bare minimum. You know, and then if there is karma, if it's true at Buddha's view, then it'll bring good results. You'll be happy. And if it's true, I mean, you know, like as Nancy Reagan, I told you, she was apparently very attached to Ronnie, but I suppose only old people think about Reagan. So I'm old, so I remember Reagan. I remember Ronnie, what's her name? What I said a word, what was her name? What's her name? I just said her name.
Nancy.
Nancy. That's right. Nancy adored Ronnie and he died. And she said to, you know, that famous Christian priest, what's his name? Who? Billy Graham, thank you. I'm also losing my memory as well as being deaf. Billy Graham. And she said, will I see Ronnie in heaven? And he said, yes, you will. So she was happy. Okay, better than nothing. So you tell Ron, when she died, you tell her, so what, Ronnie's waiting for you, so be happy. You know, keep her mind happy. Whatever tool you can use to help a person keep their mind happy, you know, this is so important. Don't think it's lying, you know, it's not. You're being kind to that person. Understand? Okay. I'm sorry, I could easily talk about something like I normally do, but I'm running out of time. Go on then, both of you. Mary, what's your question?
Venerable, could you please mention some of the 80 superstitions? I just really.
It just means, it's just another word for delusions.
Okay.
It just means it's another word for delusions. But here I think, if we had the book, I could.
Right. It's on page 103.
I know it is, but there's no list of them. I mean, maybe in, a superstition is another word for a delusion called attachment and anger and jealousy. That's all it is, Mary.
Okay.
So you just have to look up. I mean, I think His Holiness's book, the Lati Rinpoche's book, which was published in the 80s, that Jeffrey Hopkins translated, which is really a good book to get access to, is called Death, Intermediate State and Rebirth. by Lati Rinpoche, and there it's a detailed description of these steps, including a list of the 80. But it's all just the states of mind, all the parts of the mental consciousness. Yeah, that's what it is. Yes, Nina. Yes, go. Go, sweetheart.
Oh.
Yes.
Hi, what's your name? Linda, okay.
Hi, I'm Linda. Could you review those 8 stages one more time, please?
I'll do that for sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So basically, it's a process of all the bits and pieces that make up a person stopping functioning, basically. And the name of these pieces, of course, is not based on the neuroscientific view. It's based on the view coming from the Vajrayana and including the Sutrayana of how we're constructed. Do you understand? The pieces of a person. So as Lama Zopa says in one of the chapters, first of all, you've got Buddha taught that we're made of the 5 aggregates. So this is a teaching he gave where he broke up a person into these 5 categories. But there's another way of seeing it. He breaks up the entire impermanent universe into these 5 categories, 5 components. So the first of those is form, which was referring to the physicality. One way of describing the universe from the Buddhist perspective, there are only 2 types of phenomena. There are physical things, and certainly in the Vajrayana, I think must be in the sutra as well, they talk about the 4 elements. So there's matter, which is made of the 4 elements. So that the matter that makes a computer, a carpet, or this person, this is the same 4 elements as the computer: earth, air, fire, water. Of course, in our modern world, we don't use these words anymore. Earth, air, fire, water, very old-fashioned, but they still use this as their basis. And this is the basis of the acupuncture. It's the basis of the Tibetan medical system. It's the basis of the Ayurvedic system, these old systems. They use the concept of earth, air, fire, water. And then you've got minds. This is totally the Buddhist view. Minds, which are not physical. You can't see, taste, touch, or smell them. But this is the component that makes us a sentient being. This is the component that distinguishes between a carpet and a person. This is the 4 elements. That's the 4 elements, but this one's conjoined with a consciousness. Well, so is an ant, so is a dog, but also Buddha would assert many other kinds of beings who also have the 4 elements, but they maybe got a hell being as a being whose mind, due to negative tendencies, has now reborn, and their mind is conjoined with their 4 elements, but their 4 elements are mainly manifesting as fire. The spirit has got air predominant, So this is just the way they say the universe is. No one made it like this. There's no creator in Buddhism. This is the analysis coming from these yogis of how they observe the universe. So form is, in terms of a person, is the physical. Now the next 2 are 2 of this text they have in the Buddhist monastic university system in all the traditions. It goes back a couple of thousand years, coming from the teaching of Buddha. It's called mind and awareness. And they have there in the psychological model of the mind, the first part is where you study the epistemological model, the way the mind works, sensory, mental, and the divisions of that. Then you've got the psychological model, which is the contents of our mind, the thoughts and feelings and emotions, all the different. So in this text, they present 51 of those. I don't know why just 51, because you've got 80 at the end of death, you've got 51 here, but in fact, Buddha says there are 84,000 of them. So there's all different viewpoints. So this 51 are said to be a sort of pretty good grouping, a pretty basic grouping of all the different states of mind, some neurotic, some virtuous, and some that I call the mechanics, a grouping of 51. So the sum of those that play a powerful role in our minds that are functioning all the time. So there's a grouping in that 51 called the 5 always present. They call them mental factors. We might call them states of mind. And they're mostly the one that I call mechanics, which are not the negative and not the positive. There's like intention, which is there every millisecond. Intention is bare bones volition, I will. And the next one is called attention. You then home in onto the thing. And then you have discrimination, which is constantly there every millisecond, distinguishing between this and that. Like cushion, red, pink, blue, square, round, space, time. It's constantly going. And the crucial piece and that plays a massive role in our day-to-day lives in terms of creating suffering. So then the other one is feeling. There's always either a pleasant feeling, an unpleasant feeling, or a neutral feeling. So Buddha plucks out feeling and discrimination and gives them this status, particular status, as two important components among these five. It's not random. There's 51 of these, but he picks out two of them because of their particularly powerful role in the way we suffer. So, for example, you know, I use this example. It's a negative. I use a negative karma. So that fisherman boy, I always use the example of that little boy who's a fisherman. He'd never heard of fishing. He then meets fishing, which is this, he makes contact with fishing. The next millisecond, because of the intensity of his past habit to kill from past lives, feeling arises. And in fact, it's a very, very, very pleasant feeling. Because he's got the deep habit to kill in the past, he makes contact, and then it triggers intensely pleasurable feelings. Now, we know all we want is pleasant feelings. Every sentient being is driven desperately to get pleasant feelings. We call it happiness. So then the next one, in fact, in the 12 links, the next one is then attachment kicks in, but he doesn't give it that status. He calls discrimination, which is the ability to distinguish this is this and this is that. So these two play a massive role in our perpetuating our suffering, you know. Because distinguishing, if you didn't have discrimination, you wouldn't know a square, round, good, bad, pink, yellow, cake, fishing, or anything else. You'd just be confused. So this plays a huge role in perpetuating our samsara. This one called discrimination, and then the one called feeling. So it gives them equal powerful status in this 5. The next one is like a grab bag of all the impermanent bits and pieces after those 3 leftovers, like a little grab bag of leftover impermanent bits, like all the other 49 mental factors and other bits and pieces that make up a person. And then the 5th one is called consciousness. So when you study the mind, you learn about this mind in general, consciousness in general, and then you have these specific mental factors, these like particular voices of mind. So they're the 5 aggregates. And at the death process, each of these in order gradually diminish. At the first stage of death, form, the body starts to cease. The next one is feeling. The difference between pleasure, pain, and indifference begins to cease and kind of merge. The next one is discrimination. That one starts to go, and you can't tell the difference between mummy and daddy and your worst enemy and your worst friend, best friend at the time of death. You've lost the plot. And the 4th one is in form, feeling, discrimination, and then the compositional factors, that 5th grab bag, that ceases. And particularly one intention, in there is intention, that goes. You no longer even know who you are. They're the 4 of the 5 aggregates. They cease at the first stage of death. That's the 5 aggregates. Now, the next component, the next part of these 8 stages, those first 4, first, second, third, and 4th stages of death. At the same time, there's 5 what they call wisdoms they talk about, which is capacity of the mind, the way it functions. And as Lama Zopa says, they go in the first, 4 of them go in the first 4 stages, and each of them is related to the sensory consciousnesses. So the first one to go after form, because each of the 8 stages in the first 4, 5 of them occur, 5 of these 25 components. So the next, when the same time as form goes, also this particular wisdom called mirror-like wisdom. It's linked to the eye consciousness, because all at the same time as in the first stage, your eye consciousness starts to see, so you're kind of glazing over, which means this mirror-like wisdom is this capacity to see a lot of things all at once. So you know when you start to get tired, you can hardly hold any information with your eyes, you know. So it's linked to the eye consciousness, this mirror-like wisdom. That goes. So there's the first stage of death is there's 25 components of the 8. The first one is form. That starts to go. Earth element, another one. The 4 elements is another category in that 8. The 4 elements. So your earth starts to go. Your body feels heavy and it's sinking. Your eye consciousness starts to go. You glaze over. The mirror-like wisdom starts to go, which is connected to the eye consciousness. And then the 5th one of that first stage of the 8 is there's this vision, a subtle vision of a mirage, the interplay of earth element, and then the next one is water. So those ceased. Now the next 4, the first of the second of the 5 aggregates starts to go, which is feeling. And so because in daily life we have a vivid distinction between pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral, here you kind of vaguely, they all kind of merge, you know. And at the same time, the mirror-like wisdom is called equanimity. And all these three seem to kind of merge together, something like that. The third of this, in the fourth stage, the second stage, would be the ear consciousness. That starts to cease. And then the fifth one is this vision of like the interplay of water element, and the water element goes at the first stage. The first one was earth, now it's water, and the liquids in the body dry up in the second stage of the 8. And the fifth of the second stage, the 5 each one, there's the vision of like steamy or like smoky interplay of water and fire. Now the next stage, the third of the 8, the 5 things that cease functioning. The third one is of the 5 aggregates is form, feeling, recognition. So you no longer can distinguish between friends, enemies, and strangers. You got your beloved on the left, your ugly old grandma on the right. You can't tell the difference. So that's starting to cease functioning. Now your nose consciousness ceases to function. Now the fire element starts to go and the heat starts going out of the body. And the fifth one is sparks, the vision of sparks, which is the interplay of fire, and the next one, which is air. Then the next one is the volition, intention among the grab bag of many bits left over, including the 49 of the 51 mental factors. The one they focus then on there is intention, which is I will, volition, this mental factor. That goes. And now you can no longer even know who you are. You hear words and you can't make any sense of it. You've lost the plot by this point. Your tactile consciousness ceases, your tongue consciousness ceases. The tongue that spent its life gossiping, as Geshe Rabton said, is now useless, and the breathing stops. So that's about 20 things that ceased in that 4 steps. Most of the aggregates, because your consciousness is still there, mental, but the aggregates, the sensory consciousness, the 4 elements, and these subtle indicators, these subtle signs. So by that point, the West thinks you're dead, okay? But you're not dead yet. Your mental consciousness is now still functioning. So the next stage is the vision is called the white vision, and that's because of the components of the subtle body, the subtle physicality, the 72,000 subtle channels going throughout your body, coursing in those subtle channels, all these wind energies, prana, which is the basis of the study of the Tibetan doctors, the Chinese doctors, and the Ayurvedic doctors. And used to be one time in our culture, 1,000 years ago. All the wind energies. And all those winds are inextricably linked to all our different states of mental consciousness. So you've got also the red and the white drops that came from your mummy and daddy, the subtle red and white drops that when your mummy and daddy, at the beginning of our conception, about when we first started, that mummy's and daddy's egg and sperm came together, and a subtle level, according to this Vajrayana system, of that red and white, of the sperm and egg, are the white and red drops, this subtle physical energy, red and white kundalini. They're the subtle level of the egg and sperm. So our consciousness from the previous life programmed to go to that particular fallopian tube, then when they hop into bed and the two come together, we zap in. And our very subtle consciousness conjoins with that red and white drop. So those red and white kundalini are also components now in this life of our subtle physicality. And that red and white drop remained at our heart chakra from the time of conception until the death comes when they open up and the mind goes. That hasn't happened yet. But there's red and white kundalini also throughout the other channels. And so the white vision is the white kundalini, which predominates at the crown chakra. And that's the source of the capacity of the human body to have pleasure. That melts down the central channel and comes to the heart chakra, where it goes to and then there's this vision of white, clear sky. Then the red kundalini, mainly predominating at the navel chakra, just below the navel, which is the source of the heat in our body, the capacity for the body to experience heat. That rises up, and then there's a red vision. And then the next level, the red and the white enclose this subtle drop that came at the time of conception from mummy and daddy, the subtle red and white drop. Then they enclose that, and then there's like a dark appearance, like a faint. Then when they open, That's the clear light mind, the subtlest level of our mind. And when that leaves, that's the next life. All right?
And how long does it take from when the process, the first stage starts to when somebody
Well,
actually
in
goes through?
general, it can be very short, depending on the person. It can be very short, the 8 stages. A violent death, it often would go, it's like the difference between walking down 100 floors of stairs or jump or falling down. You still go through the 8 stages, but super quick. But the typical one, if the person's in a good condition and it's going to be a virtuous rebirth, it could be, and it's peaceful and the health is fairly reasonable, it could be a couple of hours before you stop breathing. But it could be quicker than that. But then it's easily up to 3 days before the red and the white drop open and the consciousness leaves the body. That could be up to 3 days after you've stopped breathing.
So there's no specific time frame
What,
that
sweetheart?
there's no specific time frame spent in each stage.
No, it's very different for individuals, seems like. And the yogis have control over it, so they can know what they're doing exactly, Because, I mean, the fact of well, if you look at sleep, the same thing occurs at sleep. The 8 stages occur at sleep. Well, look how quickly we go to sleep. Depends. Sometimes you don't, but look how quickly, if you do go to sleep, it can be in 1 second, isn't it? Well, that's how quickly the 8 stages went. You see my point? It's not slow, it's not gradual, isn't it? It's quite quick. It's really quite quick, isn't it? You don't sit there sleeping now, the earth's element is gone, now I can't see properly. I mean, within a second, usually you're wide awake and you're dead, Do you understand?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much.
Okay. What else, people? Yes, Nina.
Question.
Venerable, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how to properly go about the body of a loved one when they passed away, and
Good,
specifically
we
what
can do
to
that.
do with
I forgot
ashes
all about that.
and the practice of Jangwa.
Thank you
If
so
could speak
much.
more to it.
Yes, so many things there. I forgot all about that. That's fantastic. Yes, though, Manu and Tara, talk to me. Yep, talk to me, Manu and Tara. Hello, sweethearts.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I was wondering why we forget our past lives and why we forget this process. If we've been reborn an infinite number of times, it seems
right.
like it becomes something
Yes.
familiar.
It's a very good question, isn't it? Well, okay. Would you agree that most human beings can't remember 99% of today, and it's 11 o'clock in the morning here in Santa Fe? If each of us had to sit down and account for every millisecond of exactly what we said, saw, touched, tasted, and smelt since we woke up, we would be utter and complete failures. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
that's almost should be enough answer. Conceptuality, which is the level we function at, is profoundly limited in its capacity. That's all. It's the only level of cognition we have. We know we have to train our memory really strongly to remember things. And even if you forget it after a while, if you just stop playing the piano, some instinct will be there, but you've got to train again, I remember years ago, I remember memorized a particular prayer I liked. It took about 10 minutes. And then I stopped saying it and I can hardly find it in my mind at all. The imprint is there, which is what happens with karma. So conceptuality is very limited in its capacity. It's only when we start to access mental consciousness and we can train our mind, then have access to it. And then we can see easily. That's what clairvoyance is. Clairvoyance is the ability at a subtle level of mind just to see past and future. It's there, because the conceptuality and the sensory consciousness aren't polluting it.
Okay.
Because you can eventually remember your past lives when you've accessed your subtle mind. The memories are all there. Conceptuality doesn't have the capacity to cognize it. Because the key answer is conceptuality is very, very gross. That's all. You see my point? When you've accessed your subtle mind in concentration, then you can see your past lives perfectly and the lives of others. And as you progress on your path, you can see more and more past, more and more future, ever more subtle, ever more subtle. So it's all there to be cognized, but conceptuality doesn't have the capacity. That's all. That's the answer. You see my point?
I do. Thank you.
Darling. Okay. So Nina, thank you. I'll do that. I forgot all about it. That's the next stages of the book. It's like, basically, let me read from Lama Zopa. Hang on. Okay. Okay. So once the person has stopped breathing, you have to, then you leave ideally for those 3 days we talked about. Then you got to make sure the mind has in fact left the body. They usually say it doesn't ever take longer than 3. That's what they tend to say, but you should check. And one of them is if it's warm here, that's the heart right there. If it's still warm, that indicates the clear light consciousness is still at the heart chakra. I told you I sat with my sister in the hospital in Melbourne when she died, but only had about 5 hours. I couldn't tell because her core was still really warm, so obviously it takes, but after 3 days, everything else should be very cold. And if at the heart it's still warm, that's an indication the subtle mind is still there. And that's even for animals as well. But also, it's interesting, many people report, nurses and people who live with it, who work with the dying, who do this, sometimes they say people's head moves, other things that people say, I just know the soul is no longer there, they say. People often have those experiences. So trust those ones, I think. It's important. It could be true. But the other physical sign is that, the red and white drops are sitting at the heart chakra. And when they open and the clear light consciousness leaves, the red one and the white one have to keep going down the central channel or up the central channel. So as Rinpoche says, I think for men, the white one leaves through the penis, and you see a little kind of subtle drop. It can be visible. And the red one leaves through the nose. You might see a pinkish drop here. That's the sign. And in women, it's the reverse. So that can be a sign. Although there might be other liquids there too, what might make it difficult, but that is a sign the mind has gone. And also, they say if you touch the flesh and it doesn't bounce back again, the mind has gone. And also rigor mortis is a good sign, that the consciousness has left. So the way they say before you move the body and do what you have to do, you press very strongly here at the crown chakra, remembering the central channel, the subtle nervous system, is just in front of the spine. So if it comes up all the way, it'll be about the back of your head, about there. And you press very strongly or pull the hair very strongly there. And that could encourage, if the consciousness is still there, that could encourage the conscious to leave there, which means a good sign that no matter what the karma was, it seems, that was triggered before they stopped breathing, that could help them get a pure land rebirth, like I told you. So then what to do after the mind has left the body. So how to prepare your loved one's body for cremation or burial, Well, Rinpoche is really into all these practices, as you know. So one of the practices is to sprinkle blessed seeds and water or whatever on your loved one's body. So get some sesame seeds or mustard seeds, say, or talcum powder, water, perfume, or something you can easily sprinkle. So now recite all these different mantras Rinpoche talks about, Nam Gelma mantra 21 times, whatever, or other mantras, and you blow on stuff. That's how he says. So having blessed your breath, because you know how we talked about from the point of view of these Buddhists, Sanskrit sounds are said to be so powerful. And then the wind energy is sound. There's 4 of the 4 elements. The wind energy is sound, and the purest sound is mantra. That's how they talk. So by saying mantra, you purify your breath, you blow on those seeds or the talcum powder, and then that blesses. He says like this, is how they talk. And then you sprinkle that. The Rinpoche always has a little bag of this. He says, I keep a big packet of mustard seeds or baby powder close by, and every day after I've chanted thousands of various mantras, I blow on the powder or the seeds and I bless them. And then I use them whenever I see dead insects or animals. Or for people who've died, he sprinkles it on them. So he blesses them. That's one way. That's his. Rinpoche loved all these practices, okay? Another one is you bless your loved one's body with written mantras. So he talks a lot about that. He's got this big sheet. He apparently you can do it. You can print mantras on a big sheet, and you can wrap the body of your loved one in that if you like, or even in mantras. He mentions one of his lamas, Kirtisenta Rinpoche, I think, would do that. Print mantras and long rolls and wrap around the body, having the mantras touch the body. That's how they talk. But of course, one thing too, you'd retain the ashes, or if you don't cremate them, if you bury them, get a bit of hair or nails. And you can there's a particular practice he really recommends where you bless the remains. He talks about that. So now the funeral service. They don't really have what's called a funeral service in the Tibetan tradition. They have lots of prayers and practices all the time, We do that. So he just suggests, you can have light offerings, you can have flowers, make it very nice, make lots of offerings on behalf of your loved one. Then you could recite at the ceremony. You can choose, these different practices. You recite mantras, you recite the medicine Buddha, you can do the King of Prayers. And of course, most people do little talks, don't they? about their loved one, those things, of course, but then there's other practices. And then chapter 28, how to bless your loved one's ashes and include them in holy objects. I'm a real fan of all this stuff. So he basically says that as soon after the funeral service as possible, you should organize the practice is called jangwa. It's a Tibetan term. And it takes several hours to do, and the best way is to have it done by a monastery where they know what they're doing, you know. So during which the Buddha's wisdom is invoked into the remains. This is how they talk. Thus purifying and blessing them. As I mentioned, you know, you need only a small, I didn't say that, a small amount, just a little bit of ashes or bones or hair. So he says, you know, from his perspective, keeping the ashes of your loved one that haven't been blessed has no benefit at all for the dead or the living. Whereas, as Courtin Rinpoche said, now that the ashes are purified and blessed with this practice, they are actual relics or holy objects, all these things. You know, people have discussions about these things, but Rinpoche is a big fan of all this. So even if the person died with non-virtuous thoughts, which usually means it's different to be born in the lower realms, and they are in the intermediate state, you can help them change direction and receive a human body instead, or even go to the Pure Lands by relying on this practice. This is why you would do it immediately after. Don't wait 6 months, you know, you do it immediately afterwards, as soon as possible, after the funeral, after the mind is gone, and you bless. And this practice, he really says, is a great fan of it, even if you're in the immediate state. Even if you've got negative karma about to ripen in the future suffering rebirth, you can help shift it because of the power of the Buddhas and the power of the blessings. That's what Rinpoche says. Then you can dedicate to your loved one all the merits created by doing the blessing, praying that their negative karma is purified. This viewed animals as well, you know. All those things. So he really stresses the importance of this. So then what you do with the blessed ashes then is you can do different things. One is you can mix it with plaster and, you know, make those little tsatsa images, you know, the little Buddha images, point them out where they are. Nina, there's some here. A tsatsa is a little bas relief, very small bas relief image of the different Buddhas, you know. And Rinpoche is a big fan of all these holy objects and the power of holy objects. There we go, look at that. And often it can be painted. So you can mix your ashes with that, and then instead of giving all your loved ones a little bowl of a little kind of cup of ashes, which always feels weird, you give them a little tsatsa. So it's a Buddha image, and your loved one's ashes are part of it. So somehow it's more pleasing to have on the mantelpiece, I think, than an urn of ashes. Somehow I feel it's up to people. I mean, I wanted to do that for my sister. I said they already burned my sister, and they put them into a big thing. Then I'd forgotten to ask her to have some ashes, especially to bless. And big hassle, they had to cut it open and give me a little extra piece of ashes. And I said, would you like me to do this? And they said, no, thank you. They don't want to see a boring old Buddhist image, so I didn't do it for them, you know, because they all don't like religion at all, my sisters and my brother. What to do? Doesn't matter. We're all brought up Catholics. I'm happy with my Catholic upbringing. I don't mind. The nuns were, anyway, never mind. I'm happy with my Catholic upbringing. I learned a lot. None of my sisters and my brother likes it at all. In fact, my sister Judy, they always tell me I shouldn't talk about them, so I hope they don't hear. She's a chiropractor, but she became a lawyer about the age of 65. And now she's about 70-something, and she's got a team of 25 lawyers working full-time supporting the victims of the Catholic pedophiles. So she's very happy doing that. I'm happy for her to help, you know, but they all love to hate religion. What to do? Doesn't matter. So I had to be I told you I had to be so careful. You know, they know I'm nutty, saying silly sounds and mantras. I had to be very careful not to upset anybody. You understand? Because it's quite emotional. She's our older sister. We all loved her, you know. Okay. So I offered to make little satars and give them one. No, thank you, they said. I haven't done it yet. They're still sitting. They've been blessed, but I'm still sitting on my mantelpiece. I haven't made the satars yet. So now you can even do more to benefit your loved one. Having blessed the ashes with jangwa, that practice, get it done at Courtin or somewhere. I don't know if Geshe Sherab does it, but, you know, he might. He does. He does. Good. Okay, fantastic. So even if you've got ashes there from your grandma from 20 years ago, bring them here and get them blessed. It'll help your grandma, wherever she is, you know. You can include them in holy objects such as tatsa, statues, or stupas, which brings so much benefit, both to your loved one and to you. As I mentioned, you know, in practice 87, which is the last one in the book, it said that if a person is destined to be born in the lower realms, making a holy object, even simply on their behalf, can change the situation and help them get a good rebirth. Some people say that you shouldn't put ordinary people's ashes in holy objects, but I said by doing the practice of jangwa, the wisdom of the Buddhas is invoked into it and thus purifying and blessing them. Including the blessed ashes in satsas or other holy objects creates inconceivable merit for your loved one and also for you. Typically, people offer flowers or lights to a loved one at the cemetery. This doesn't accumulate any merit. It's not even a virtuous action. But now, because you're offering to a holy object, you are creating huge amounts of merit. You can decide which Buddha to use for the satsa or statue, medicine Buddha, Amitabha, whoever you want, you know. And you can also make this holy object yourself, and you can request Dharma centers to make them. There's a list, I think, in the book of the centers who make them. But it's really nice to make them yourself. It's very lovely. You can learn that. And if you wanted to, also instead of that, you could throw the blessed ashes into the wind or water once it's been blessed. If you like, you could throw some of the blessed ashes into the wind from a high mountain or into the sea, a lake or a river. All the sentient beings touched by the ashes are purified of their obscurations, Rinpoche says. So these are his methods. Yeah. Now, the next one, practices to do during the 49 days after the mind has left the body. So, of course, this is based upon this whole idea, you know, from this tradition, and the observation of the yogis, that it takes up to 49 days, up to 7 human weeks. It can take up to 7 human weeks. It's 49 days for the consciousness. Once the red and white drop open, that second, your consciousness leaves that and you go through the reverse 8 stages and you wake up, if you like, in the intermediate state, which is exactly the same as a dream state, but more dramatic, that's all. And the only difference is when you wake up out of a dream state, you wake up in this body, but after this dream state, you wake up in another body. It's more dramatic, you know. So they say it can be up to 49 days in that intermediate state. So even if you know the mind has gone, you can still do the practices for the 49 days. They always say it's beneficial. So there's just lots of practices, you know. So here's where Rinpoche says 4 possibilities of what can happen after the mind leaves the body. Well, the first one, the karma that was activated at the time of death was virtuous, and the mind is still in the intermediate state. That's the first scenario. Well, you can pray that your loved one is born in the Pure Lands, where they can achieve enlightenment or receive a perfect human rebirth, where they can meet a perfectly qualified Mahayana guru and Mahayana teachings and then achieve enlightenment. That's the best scenario. The next one, the karma that was activated at the time of death was virtuous, and the mind has already taken rebirth in the human realm or the Pure Lands. So even in this case, it's still beneficial to do prayers and practices. You dedicate all the merit from doing those practices for that 49 days for the person who has passed away. The third scenario is the karma that was activated at the time of death was non-virtuous and the mind is still in the intermediate state. Well, this means the person will be born in the lower realms, but it's possible that prayers and practices can help the mind change direction and instead receive a human body or even be born in the Pure Lands, as I mentioned. So that's why these practices, after the breath has stopped, after the mind has gone, are so important, because we're not clairvoyant. We don't know where they're born, you know. This can help for sure. That's what they say. And even the worst scenario, the karma that was activated at the time of death was non-virtuous, and the mind has already taken rebirth in the lower realms. Again, in this case, it's even still possible to liberate a person from the lower realms. And he discusses this, you know, there's certain practices that are very powerful for that. So he's very optimistic. There's always something you can do. That's how he talks. Then he just lists lots of practices, lots and lots of practices. All are in the book, and you can choose which ones you'd like to do. But he always says a really good practice for everybody, especially because we're so attached to objects and possessions, aren't we, is to use the person's objects and make sure everything of the person's is given away. Because that generosity, karma, helps the dying person, helps the dead person. Because we're so attached to things, isn't it, you know? So make sure their money is used for really virtuous things. Make sure that everything is given away. Do you understand? That's a really important point for the sake of the dead person. You can do practices, you can do retreats. And then that's it. That's the book. Done. It's only 11:30. Maybe you can finish early. I didn't mean to cheat you. I'm always cheating you of time. But, you know, we're finished. Maybe you don't have to have this afternoon. I'm not trying to be rude. I could say more. It's true. I could. We'll see how we feel. Have some lunch and see how we feel. Yeah, go on. Yes, sweetheart. Yes, Barbara. Microphone to Barbara, please.
Scarlett has a question as well.
Who?
What do you do?
Scarlett. Okay, hang on, Scarlett. Wait, do Barbara first.
Thank you, Venerable. The 49 days in the Bardo, is my understanding correct that you leave the bardo very rapidly if you're going to a lower realm?
If we think about it again in a practical way, which is, this is meant to be reality, okay? So obviously, it's obvious, is it not? But forget other realms that we can't see, but we can see animals, can't we? And it's fairly evident there are an awful lot of animals that we can see. Would you agree with that? So it's obvious it's easier to get an animal birth than a human one. So it goes without saying, doesn't it? It's likely to be quicker. Sure.
And then if a mind isn't going to the lower realms, then it's going to a human realm
Or a pure land.
or a pure land. It's just waiting to find the right.
It's waiting, not to find, there's already programmed. You're basically waiting for your bloody mother and father to hop into bed and have sex. I'm not trying to be hysterical here. That's it. I mean, do you see my point here? The karma ripened, was triggered before you stopped breathing in this life, the time of your past death, whatever you were, before you even stopped breathing, Barbara, the karmic seed that you had planted from non-killing, by living in a spiritual path, by living in vows of not killing, was triggered that caused your death to be very peaceful. That already determined you go to this mother's fallopian tube. So you have to wait around till she damn well has sex with your daddy. These days you use Petri dishes, isn't it? So I don't know what, they're all looking at what goes on there because it's quite different. You understand? Are you communicating?
We are communicating.
Okay, good.
This will be short. What about using Ativan?
What about what, darling?
Using Ativan when people are dying.
I don't know what Ativan is. You mean it's a drug?
Maybe I'm using the wrong word.
No, it's Ativan.
Ativan. Like when my mom was dying, she was in a coma and she got a little agitated.
So you mean it's a drug?
It's a
What
drug
it's supposed
that
to do?
calm people down.
Okay, I mean, this is the whole point. You know, this is the point I mentioned before, I think yesterday. What's really crucial is that the dying person, the more conscious they can be, the more they're able to hear good advice, the more they can be relaxed, the more they can be calm, the more they can be having volition, their wits about them, the better. So, you know, we have a tendency in our culture to drug people out of their brains. Oh, look, she's so peaceful. But you can see she's agitated, she's grasping the sheet, she's tossing and turning, she's having a nightmare. That's not cool. So you got to use your wisdom to know what drugs are helpful to calm the person. Because you can medicate physical pain. You cannot medicate mental anguish. That's something really important. So because we see a person who's drugged out of their brain, they look like they're calm, but their mind is having nightmarish dreams because you can't make the mental state, drugs won't make the mental state peaceful, pretty much. So that's why you've got to help the person be peaceful. And by having cognition and awareness, that's how you help keep virtuous and peaceful, you know. Do your best to do that. You understand? So we've got to know and all I know is I told you, I used to have this terrible, weird arthritic pains. And the one hospital I went to in Melbourne wouldn't give me, you know, they wouldn't put these steroids into me to stop the pain. So they did all these experiments trying to work out what it was. And they gave me morphine. And all I know is I was like in a nightmare. I was like in a I was hallucinating. It was horrible. I wouldn't want to die like that. I would not want to have died like that, you know. My mind was awful. So stressed. So kind of hallucinating. I was hallucinating, you know. I do not want to die like that. So you've got to find the balance between fixing the pain and keeping the mind stable as well as we can. It's not easy. So it's a really important point. What else? Scarlett, yes, dear.
Scarlett, please unmute. Thank you.
Hello, Venerable. Good afternoon.
Norman.
I have
Good
two
afternoon.
questions. The first one is, what can I do like right now, today, to help a very dear loved one that's passed away like 3 years ago?
Have you got their remains? That's one thing. Got the remains?
No, I don't know. It's
Okay.
all, it was thrown away in the ocean.
What, dear?
The ashes were thrown away in the
Okay, that's all
water.
finished. You can't do that then. So you just do prayers for them, like in the book, like it says, you do some medicine Buddha for them. That's it.
And when I do the medicine Buddha, I do it in dedication of that person.
You know, you even visualize the medicine Buddha blessing them, whatever you want. Absolutely.
And
If
it's
you have
still
confidence, if you have confidence in the power of Buddhas, darling, you got to know that they exist, and it's up to you.
And it will still be effective wherever this person may be 3 years later.
Well, that's what these holy beings say. That's what I said about the bone. Even a bone, Lama Zopa says, is 1,000 years old. It used to be the body. We know that. It used to be conjoined with the consciousness. Wherever that consciousness is now, Lama Zopa would say, he says, because of the power of mantra, by you saying a mantra and blessing your breath and blowing on that bone, the consciousness whose bone that was 1,000 years ago would get the benefit. This is what he says. I'm only quoting what he says.
Could a piece of
Understand?
jewelry, could a
What
piece
year?
of jewelry or something, a piece of clothing of that person work?
What, sweetie pie? Say it again.
Could a piece of jewelry that belonged to that person or clothing work, or that doesn't?
Yeah, because I mean, she's probably attached to the jewelry, so say some mantras on it. Yes, good idea.
Okay, okay. My next question is,
Wait a minute. Have you got a piece of this person's clothing?
yeah.
Okay, petal. Their sweat and their skin flecks will be on it. So you can do jangwa. Get it done in the monasteries. You can bless their sweaty jacket. Are you
Jangwa.
communicating?
Yeah.
I just told you about it. It's all in the book.
Okay, okay.
Read the book.
Okay, I will look at what that
Even
is.
you just blow mantras on it, petal. You say medicine Buddha and you blow on that sweaty cloth. Are we communicating?
Yeah, that sounds great. My other question my other question is there the whole process sounds wonderful. Is there like a organization or some kind of person that does this type of work that like I can refer to prepare?
Funny, Scarlett. You make me laugh, dear. Sweetie pie, I love your sincerity and your earnestness. Sweetie pie, if you just get Lama Zopa's book, would you, called How to Face Death Without Fea, and read it and take the advice and look up the websites of the monasteries who do some of these practices. It's all there for you to do, and then you could adjust, go to the monasteries and get the blessings done and get the jangwa done and do this and do that and blah, 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 blah. All right?
Okay.
Did you hear me?
I did, but I think what I was asking when my last
Whereabouts are you on the planet? In the moon or somewhere? Where do you live, dear?
No, I live in Canada, but what I was wondering was like for you to prepare for yourself, are there people like that do these types of things for someone that's dying?
Well, if it's a Buddhist hospice service, yes. And there are lots of hospice services, but we in our centers are trying to cultivate these hospice services who would offer these practices. Absolutely, sweetheart.
I think it would be really great because I just don't think family members.
You know what, Scarlett? You know what, Scarlett? You be like the Bodhisattva and you say, you know what? I will do it. So how about you decide you're going to start a hospice service that provides this service? How about that?
Something to consider. Thank you.
What'd she say? That's the brave attitude of the Bodhisattva. They don't go around saying, you should do this and they should do that. The Bodhisattvas say, I will do it. So think about that, Scarlett. It might be the perfect job for you.
Thank you.
Good, darling.
Venerable, we have a question from Ajna. Oh, I think I lost it. Ajna says, thanks, Venerable. Is it the same process for the Bardo body when it's about to take a rebirth?
Don't understand the question. I'll just say a bit more. Don't get it.
Ajna?
Sweetheart, I don't understand the question.
No, I'm just wondering if it's the same death process for the Bardo body. Like, do you go through it twice before getting a new rebirth?
Oh, you mean yes, you go through the 8 stages as the human, you then leave the body and you go to the bardo. And yes, exactly, you go to the reverse 8 stages from the bardo to then you run to the egg and the sperm and then you go in and then you become a human. Yes, exactly.
Oh, so it's the process in reverse.
Exactly, that's right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
And then
wait a minute. No. Well, yes, it has to be because there you are. Your mummy and daddy hop into bed. sorry, too personal here, Ira and Sylvia, rock into bed, and then the egg and sperm come together, and the red and white drop are there, and there's Arjuna there's Arjuna in the bardo, and he's waiting for his mummy and daddy because he's planned his rebirth, he's booked his rebirth in advance, and he's waiting for them to come together. So you're in the bardo, and you're the subtle level, the subtle consciousness. And then you've got to, so you would go from to the reverse because you've got to be the very subtle mind, the clear light mind, your clear light mind, which you go from the bardo to that one. That's the stages. And then the clear light mind. Well, no, wait a minute. Let's just think about it, Ajna. Because what happens is that the bardo being then sees mummy and daddy, and then you've got very strong attachment to the mother, because you're going to be born a boy, and you run like a magnet, and the next millisecond, you're there at the egg and sperm, and you get angry because all you see is the sex organs, and then that kills you as the bardo being. The bardo being stops, and then you enter into the egg and sperm. So we have to think about what happens. That's what happens, though. That's what they say. You with me?
Thank you, Venerable. Thank you.
I think the 8 stages, I'm not sure. It has to be that.
Yeah,
Because
I was
when
just
you wake up
curious
from a
if
dream, it's the same as your dream, Ajna. The bardo is like the dream. So when you go to sleep, you go to the deepest level, then you go through the 8 stages and wake up in the dream mind, and then you have to go through the stages. No, you wouldn't go through the stages to get to the very subtle level. You would not do that. You've got to then go a grosser level to get back in, to come back into come back into life, come back into awakeness. I have to think about it. I don't know. Read Lama Zopa and see what he says again. It's in the book.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Good point. Thanks, Ajna.
Curious. Thank you.
Venerable, we have 3 questions online.
Good, go on.
One is Shayla, followed by Larry, followed by Jane.
Good, and there's Paul here wants to say something. Go, Paul, you go. Yes, microphone for Paul, please.
Sorry, Shayla, we're going to take Paul's first.
Yep.
Yeah. How do these theories about,
Start again.
or how do these ideas about being born into a human form, and underlying that you have endless lives, right? Unlimited lives. How does that fit within the theories of evolution that man has only been around?
No, okay. It's a really good question. I just had to give you, but I just had to express it the way I understand it based on this model, okay? Try to put these 2 views together. Okay, good point. Thank you. Okay, here we are. The physical world, the materialist world, just sees the physical world. As you said, we have evolution. And they're still trying to work out the missing link, aren't they? Aren't they still trying to work out how come from a monkey-looking guy with a bit limited mind to a clever person? So it's a sort of it's interesting theory. So, okay, I think it's like this. Okay, it's like this. We have the mind. This is the Buddha's view. There's consciousness. And there's Paul. Okay, and let's say pretend that Paul's mind at some point, before we show to be humans on the planet, let's say Paul's mind, because your mind's beginningless. All minds are beginningless. This is the Buddha's view. Whether it's the human planet where we had no humans at some point, where there were predominantly animals, right? So where's the human come from? This is the point they say, from previous states of a human condition that was more subtle. That wasn't this planet, but there is a human condition. There's always been that type. It's a type of mind. A hell being is a kind of mind. A God being is a kind of mind. And they're all described in terms of certain levels of joy and suffering, on the spectrum of joy to suffering. And therefore, all have got certain levels of physicality based on the fact that all minds are conjoined with their own set of the 4 elements. So there's always been the hell realm type being. There's always been spirit type being. There's always been God type being. All of them are states of mind, and all the result of the actions and the tendencies of those sentient beings. So, okay, there's this earth, this planet, and there's animals on it first. We all agree, don't they? The animals on it first, isn't there? Certain kinds of animals. So then we have to decide, when did humans start? Okay, well, if we define the Buddhist view of what a human is, a human by definition is defined by virtue. It's the presence of virtue, of goodness, wisdom, clarity, kindness, love that defines the human condition. So the ideal human condition then was that before this human planet was when it was in a subtle light body. The elements were very subtle. Human mind was super intelligent and it could get enlightened very easily, but not the way we think of human. So now they say we're into very degenerate times. So basically at some point that human condition got more gross, attachment and the delusions began to manifest, polluted the elements, and gradually at some point, and we have to work out where, at some point, then a human condition became on this planet where we joined it looking like a bunch of apes. So the distinction between, I don't know when that happened. I don't think it's possible, taking this view, that we can say humans were those monkey people, because there's not virtue there. So, I mean, I just find it very fascinating. I don't understand. I'm trying to work out it like this. So if a human is defined by the presence of virtue, then I remember hearing on the BBC one time on the World Service when I was in Kathmandu, hearing an interview with these people. What are these people called? They study societies. What are they called? Who? Anthropologists. There's a bunch of anthropologists saying when they began to investigate the Hindus civilization, they found no evidence of weapons. Now, doesn't that tell you that there was virtue prevailing? If there's no weapons, that means there's no anger. If there's no anger, that means there's not much attachment. And that means there's predominantly virtue. So maybe humans started 5,000 years ago from this perspective. This is my way of speculating. Are you with me? But evolution, let's look at that one. You asked me about that, so I answered something different. That's my first thought. Now, evolution, okay, there's a lizard house. There's a dog house. There's a dog mummy, and the dog mummy with a certain kind of body. So obviously as a dog mummy and a dog daddy, and they have dog babies, they start to adjust. This is what evolution is. They adjust according to their condition. Let's say those dogs are tucked off into the desert. So they've got to start adjusting themselves into the desert environment. So they start changing their behavior. That starts changing their claws. So over a few generations, you've got already new facets of the dog body. Would you agree with that? Now, we would say that's evolution. The dog changes according, but the difference is this. The lizard who died the week before created the karma to get born to a dog mummy because their mind was different. So they now join a dog house and behave like a dog. And indeed, evolution occurs. But then when they die after that birth, they get born now because some virtue arose and they get born as a human down the road. So you keep, the houses are real, the dog body, the human body. There is evolution, but the minds that go in and out of those houses can be from all kinds of rebirths. You with me here? That's the best way to say it. So now you look puzzled. What's the problem? What didn't that answer?
No, it's the whole concept of intersecting with space-time is what's confusing.
I don't know what you mean by that. Can you keep simple words for me? Truly, I'm sincere. What do you mean by that?
Intersection with space-time.
I don't know what it means, darling. Just keep ordinary words for me. What do you mean?
The concept of time, right?
Well, 1 second.
That something happened in the past.
Yeah, that's right. And then there's present and there's future.
Right.
What's wrong with that?
And so if there were no humans in the past.
What, darling?
If there were no humans.
But that's my whole point. There were, so you missed me. You missed what I said. So I have to say it again. I said it too fast.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'll say it again.
All right.
Thank you. You didn't, I said the words, but it's too weird, so you didn't hear it. So I'll say it again. Okay. If minds are beginningless, you with me?
Yeah.
Buddha says they're beginningless. If they're beginningless, and there's a really interesting philosophical view that determines there can't be a first cause. That's a bizarre idea for the Buddha. If you say there is a first cause, then by definition, it didn't have a cause, which means cause and effect is a load of rubbish. So he would assert everything is cause and effect. So you cannot by definition have a first cause. So if that's true, you can't by definition have a first human. You can't have it. You cannot have it. So human is a term referring in the Buddhist view to a certain kind of mind called virtue. You with me? Animals is a certain kind of mind. Hell is a certain kind of mind, all different kinds of mental states, and they all have a certain kind of physicality, which means a certain kind of environment and a body. You with me so far? So we can definitely say at some point there were not humans on this planet, no problem. That does not mean that human mind didn't exist. So before that, the Buddhists would all talk about how before this planet, a human birth was more refined, more subtle, and it's like different dimension. There wouldn't have been a gross bag of bones, because this is the fruit of attachment. There was a much more subtle state with subtle 4 elements where the mind was super intelligent, lasted for 1,000 years, and get enlightened easily. But gradually, they became polluted, attachment started to grow, aversion started to grow. So attachment then gradually developed into now we start getting born on this planet with a bunch of 5 senses, which are the fruit of attachment. That's the answer.
Okay, got it.
You with me? It does not fit with neuroscience. That's all I
Thank you,
can say.
Venerable. We have 2 questions online. Lisa, sorry.
Okay, go on.
Shayla, thank you so much for your patience. Please go ahead.
Actually, Larry's question was first, and he asks, what triggers rebirth in a formless realm?
What triggers rebirth in the formless realm? That's from concentration meditation, where the yogi gets so subtle, they don't even have any of the gross aggregates. It's just the result of meditation, and their mind gets to that subtle state. It's through concentration. And the mind gets ever more subtle, ever more subtle, ever more subtle. That's it. Then, next.
And my question is, first, when we return, is there any way you could walk us through maybe one of the meditations or one of the mantras so we can kind of experience it?
Well, there's 87 practices in the book. Which would you like?
Maybe one?
Well, we can finish with singing a few mantras. I'll do that. I'll sing the Medicine Buddha mantra. We'll do a little Medicine Buddha. Why don't we finish? When the questions are finished, we'll finish at lunchtime. There's nothing more to say. It's just a natural end now. We'll just finish, okay? I'm sorry if you're planning to come back this afternoon. It's too bad. I can't help it. There's nothing more to talk about. So we'll finish with a little Medicine Buddha meditation, in which case I'll also do we'll do it in relation to our loved ones who've died or our animals who are dying, and we'll do it, and we'll sing the mantra. We'll do that. Thank you so much.
And can you clarify which book you're talking about? I'm going to put 3 books up on the screen, and will you tell us which one you're talking about, or which
3
one?
books where?
I'm sharing 3
I know
books.
this is the problem with the FPMT website. They put everything on like a big soup, and it's completely confusing. Okay, let me explain. This book here is the rough is the earlier version, and it's free, so you'll all love that. It's an earlier version of the book that's now called How to Face Death Without Fea, this one. So the other one, which is a free PDF, is an earlier version of the How to Face Death Without Fea. So if you don't want to spend money, then you can get this one, but it's not the latest, that's all. And then the third, that's 2 books. That's the one you have to pay for. And then this is the third book. This one is even more confusing because this one is a wrong earlier version of the earlier version. So I don't recommend you buy this one at all. Don't waste your money. It's completely wasting money. Don't buy it. And this one is worth it still. And if you don't want to spend money because you're poor or mean, get the other one. Are we communicating? Thank you very much for pointing this out. It's a very good point. And FPMT should be pointing it out on their damn website, but they don't. The poor people are so confused. I have to criticize them as usual. I criticize everybody and give them lectures. So I'll give them a lecture, okay? That's the difference. We communicating? Any more questions? So yes, sweetheart.
Sorry.
Loving kindness.
Loving kindness, practicing bodhicitta.
Yes.
Where does that fit in with a constant focus on virtue, having a virtue?
That's exactly the point. That's what it means. Totally that.
There is a difference.
Huh?
There is a difference
between what?
Having an intention to be virtuous versus having an intention to.
Okay, virtue is a general word in Buddhist psychology that refers to positive states of mind. So generosity is a virtue, kindness is a virtue, patience is a virtue, bodhicitta is a virtue, love is a virtue, and then they're the individual examples of virtue. So love is the wish that we be happy. Compassion is a wish that people don't suffer. Bodhicitta is the combination of this, where you now put others first. So virtues are many of them. Do you understand my point?
Yes, thank you.
Good, darling. Well, that's it, I would say. So why don't we do little medicine Buddha? Another question. Yes, Nina.
Venerable, I just have a request.
Yeah.
We planned to offer mandala and also have a little kata offering ceremony afterwards. Could we finish with that after lunch, Venerable, so that
People,
we...
maybe people don't want to wait for lunch. Maybe you want to go home. Who wants to go home before you have lunch here? Many people don't stay for lunch. We'll just do it now then. I'll do a 3-minute meditation and do it now. Good time. Takes 5 minutes.
We need to prepare because we were planning on preparing the
Takes
mandala.
3 minutes to do the mandala.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
We'll just do it. We'll do it. It's okay. No rush. I'm not rushing, really. I sound rushing. I'm not rushing. We'll have lunch at 12:15. There's plenty of time. Is it true? I'm making you worried.
Not at all.
Good, I'm happy.
No worries.
So why don't we do a little medicine Buddha prayer, a meditation, okay? Just relax, close your eyes, it makes it easier. Sit up straight so you won't nod off to sleep. Be very natural. And we think of the embodiment of all the enlightened qualities in the aspect of what's called medicine Buddha, okay? So it's just the Buddha looking like a regular Buddha, but he's blue, dark blue. Think like that. He's sitting on a lotus in the sky, radiant dark blue body with very beautiful face, so loving and compassionate. It's a manifestation of love and wisdom and compassion in this aspect of healing, you know. And he's holding a begging bowl. And think in the begging bowl is all the virtues, all the methods to benefit sentient beings, to heal sentient beings' bodies and minds, you know. So think of him there. If you have a spiritual teacher you manifest, you think he's manifesting as the medicine Buddha for your sake. Think like that. So now you visualize whoever you want to visualize, your Scarlett's somebody from 3 weeks from years ago, or your doggy who just died, or your grandma, your grandpa who's sick, your beloved boyfriend who's dead and dying. Think of them all there, visualize them, the particular ones you're close to. Just visualize them there in front of you, okay? Either they died or they're dying or they're sick. Whoever you want to have, you want to put there, put them there. And now we visualize. We say them, it's so simple. We just say the mantra of medicine Buddha, and as we say the mantra, we imagine medicine Buddha so compassionately sends from his heart radiant beams of blue light that enter into ourselves and heal our suffering, enter into our beloveds, those who've died and those who are sick and dying, enters into them, purifying all their sickness, taking away all their pain, and if they're in the lower realms, taking away all their suffering, and then purifying their minds and making them virtuous and causing them all to eventually become a Buddha. Think like this, just gradually. Want this to happen and be so happy, and just say a few mantras. That's it. Taya ta om bekanze bekanze. No, I'm sorry. I'm going to have Lama Zopa sing it. It's much more powerful. So now we'll start again. Sorry, all this disruption. Think of all your loved ones, all of them, dead ones, live ones, nearly dying, dead, whatever. All of them, your beloveds, wanting them to be happy, wanting to be free of suffering, and yourself as well, wanting to be happy, wanting to be free of suffering. And as we hear the mantra, as we sing the mantra, visualize light coming out and blessing all of us, taking away all the pain and giving us all the things we want. Okay. Taya ta om bek. I have to get the right one. Kaya taum bekanze, maha bekanze, ranza samungate svaha. Taya taum bekanze, maha bekanze, ranza samungate svaha. Taya ta om bekanze, maha bekanze, ranza samungate svaha. Taya ta om bekanze, maha bekanze, ranza samungate svaha. Taya ta om bekanze, maha bekanze, ranza samungate svaha. Taya ta om bekanze, maha bekanze, ranza samungate svaha. Taya ta om bekanze, maha bekanze, ranza samungate svaha. Taya ta om bekanze, maha bekanze, ranza samungate svaha. So now you imagine medicine Buddha comes to the crown of everybody's head. All of us, all our beloveds, comes to their crown so happily, facing the way as they're sitting, as us. very happily. And then he dissolves very happily into blue light. And it goes through their crown, our pussycat, our dog, our auntie, whoever, and completely merges with our body, speech, and mind. So the Buddha's and Buddha's body, speech, and mind, our doggy's body, speech, and mind, our beloved auntie's body, speech, and mind, our body, speech, and mind become oneness with the body, speech, and mind of the Guru, Medicine Buddha. Pretty blessed, pretty transformed, imagine. Okay, so now we just think, finishing our course, finishing our time together, whatever we've learned from this. I'm sorry the books are so confusing, but you can get that one that's got the gold cover. That's a really good one. You can download that for free. It's an older version, and the other one you want to buy it, the digital book, it's called How to Face Death Without Fea, and not the other one. I wouldn't recommend the red one. And then a new one is coming when we've got more corrections. That's coming eventually. But it's really just, it's got masses of, everything I've talked about is coming from that book, basically, you know. It's very helpful if you want to really get familiar with it all. But as Lama Zopa says, you want to do one thing, you do the Medicine Buddha. That's it. Medicine Buddha mantra. And if you want to hear it chanted, just put YouTube Lama Zopa Rinpoche Medicine Buddha, and you'll see you'll only hear him singing it. It's very blessed. So we dedicate all the virtue we've created, listening to this teaching since Friday, all the seeds we've planted in our mind. Be very delighted for our sake and the sake of others, so that we can never give up, working on our minds, getting another decent human rebirth, carrying on our path, not giving up. So eventually we become fully developed, so we can be of benefit to suffering sentient beings. And then we can put the motivation, the prayers on there, the Jang Trup Semchok, the dedication prayers. That's it. We'll do the mandala after. So this one, yes. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. So now put the mandala, they're going to offer all the objects, going to imagine you visualize all the objects of the universe represented by this things they're offering, as well as the representations of enlightened body, speech, and mind, as a cause for us all to achieve it. And that's it, as a thank you for the teachings. And the people, by the way, some centers, the people who pass don't prostrate, just the people who offer. Because the people who pass are meant to be like the staff. So they don't prostrate. It's just the people who offer prostrate, okay? That's it. Yes. Do the prostration.
Venerable, and while Mary's preparing, may I say a few words? So I don't know if all of you know, Venerable lives in New York. It's a 5 trip from New York here to New Mexico. And Venerable, you made it. And we are so grateful for coming here and going away from the big metropolis where so many people need your help to this little town of Santa Fe to help us. There were teachings here every single day. There were guided meditations. We learned about karma. We learned about virtue and bodhicitta. We learned about how to meditate properly with the retreat on Mahamudra. And now you also were helping us and people who we might encounter on our way to die well and to die peacefully. And that is so important. Now, in Buddhism, there's many what's called whispered lineages, as you know. But Venerable, you don't whisper the teaching to us. You shout them into our hearts, and therefore wake us up and shake us up out of our lethargy, because I think it's easy to get comfortable in this samsaric realm and to kind of take it all for granted and put it off. But you show us how to take responsibility, and you show us that there's maybe less time left than we think. And maybe we need to really do something today and now rather than tomorrow or in a year or in a few years. So that's so precious, Venerable. And I think mandala offering the whole universe is a way to say thank you, but although it's like a lot, it seems like not enough. There's no words and nothing we can do to thank you enough, Venerable, for being here and for teaching us, giving us these precious, precious teachings. Thank you. I also wanted to take the opportunity to help all the amazing volunteers of the center, because everything you see, the whole operation is run by people offering their time, their skills, their wisdom, their good humor, and working together to make it happen. It's all volunteer operated organization, and many of you sitting here and many of you online are volunteering. So I wanted to really thank you for being there for the center, because you make it all happen. And then also everybody who is here, because without the participants, Venerable Robina, volunteers, myself, it would all not be really useful. So everybody who comes blesses us with your presence, with your questions, with the words, with the support. We're just so, so grateful for all the support and all you've done for us. Also, all our members and benefactors, because there's also financial component to it, and we don't have any other source of income. It's all just donations. So we're very grateful for them, because that keeps the lights, the fans running, the air conditioning working, and everything else, and the whole program website.
Stay here all 2 weeks. And all I know is it's got heating every day. It's like a miracle.
Yes.
The whole thing's heated from the floor. It's like, that's how it should be. It's okay.
Yes, it's wonderful. It's beautiful. So,
Grab the AC and grab out the AC. Where does that come from? The floor or the ceiling?
the AC comes from the vents on the
It's like the
standard.
heating.
Yes. No, the heating comes from the floor. Yeah, the
We'll
electricity.
test that when we come to the summer.
Wonderful. Yes. It all works as far as I know. It is a dependent arising, many people contributing, especially you, Venerable Robina, and there's just not enough words. I could sit here for hours and thank everybody. Thank you so much. And especially also thank you to our amazing SPC, Spiritual Program Coordinator, Venerable Dondrup, because he's the one behind the scenes organizing every single course. There's not one course that doesn't go through his desk. We're so grateful, Venerable, that you're here and doing all this work for the center. It would not exist without you. So thank you so much. And it's a good time to offer the mandala. And once we did that, there will be an opportunity to offer kata to Venerable Robina. So if you are at home online, please also grab a kata. If you have one at home, we will give you an opportunity to offer as well. And please switch on your camera for that, because otherwise it will be black screen offering a kata. And after that, we'll meet for lunch. And we will make the Tai Chi class again available for all the people here in the center in about an hour. I don't know what time zone everybody is online, but here it is 12 now, it is noon. So at 1 o'clock, there will be a guided Tai Chi class. And if you are at home and would like to join us after your lunch, we will also screen it online. So you're welcome to join. The more, the merrier. Thank you so much. Yes, Mary. Excuse me? You want to say?
Also, on behalf of all of our membership and our administration, I want to thank Venerable Robina for your tireless work for our center, for your tireless work for the Buddhist Center. No, always. I mean, our beautiful building, our beautiful practices, all of the interviews that you did this week, bringing in new members for the teachings. It's absolutely incredible. Thank you, Venerable. So we'll offer the mandala now. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Let's put it on the screen so we can all share it.
Who is chanting?
Who's Umze?
There's no Umze?
Who's the Umze? I am.
Again, Padi, La Jetsun Lame Kutserapten Jin Namati Jogye Padam Loza Mesa Asungi Negyochit Guru Ratna Mandala Kamniyatayami.
Oh, yes.
Hi, so for the katas online, Nancy, could you screen share, show Venerable from our online members, the kata offering? You want to?
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, I'm receiving.
You've got the,
I'm
can you change
receiving.
your?
Thank you, thank you.
And then go ahead, please, everyone.
Thank you.